Hello artists, this is Jane Hill and I am here to teach you one of my favorite art projects, which is paper bag puppets. What could be cooler than that? Paper bag puppets are really easy to make. You don't need a lot of fancy materials. You're simply going to need to get paper bags, you're going to need to get Crayola crowns, you're going to need to get a pair of scissors, plenty of paper, and finally, you're going to need either Elmer's glue or a glue stick. So you might want to pause the video and just get the materials that you need here, your paper bag, crown, scissors, extra paper, glue, and a glue stick, so you're ready to make your paper bag puppet. Now, I'm going to share with you a paper bag puppet that I made. Are you ready to see him? Here he is. Alrighty. This little guy is very jazzy and snazzy, and I hope you will notice that while he's got a very friendly face on the outside, he's got very large yellow teeth on the inside. I gave him a tie, I gave him buttons, I gave him feet and arms, a little fun crown, and I even gave him little ears. On the back of him, he's got polka dots and he's colored all in. I can hardly wait to get started. You know, when I was thinking about my puppet, I was thinking about art I have seen in Alaska. This was art that was made in the 1800s and the early 1900s, and it was art made by Alaskan tribes to help them get ready for the spring. These are shaman masks, and I'll move it a little bit so you can see it. It's kind of shiny. This is an example. This was made in Alaska, and it's carved out of wood. And it kind of reminded me of my puppet a little bit because it had arms and legs. And while I wear a puppet on my hand, this mask was actually worn on a dancer's face. If you look very closely, you can see that the mask is carved out of wood. There's two arms right here, two legs, a big face on the mask itself, a little face on top, and if you look very carefully, it's kind of hard to see with the reflection, there's two small animals placed on the mask. When I look at this mask, I can see that it's very symmetrical, it's very balanced, and simple shapes add up to create a very expressive form. I see that the shape of a circle is repeated over and over again. That's something I can think about for my mask. Masks like this were used in special ceremonies in the spring, early spring. So as the cold winter ended, the mask makers, including the shaman of the tribe, would instruct these masks to be made, and they were worn in ceremonial dances to encourage animals to come back for the hunt. In fact, some art historians feel that the circles that you see here are magical holes through which the spirits of the animals will move back to come and bless the land and bless the fertility of the season. It's interesting to read all about these masks and learn more about the art from Alaska, but they're wonderful inspiration for the puppets that we're going to make today. Both the puppets and the masks are worn on the body. Both have an element of performance, and both are objects that are going to be made using really bold, simple shapes, and also symmetry and balance. If I have something on one side of my puppet, I'm going to need to put it on the other. That's what symmetry and balance mean. Now, let's take another look at our puppet, and we can learn some of the techniques we need. We'll have our paper bag, and we've got brightly colored paper. Some of it's textured, and some of it's just plain paper. I'm going to encourage you to create a bunch of texture rubbings for your puppet. And for a texture rubbing, I recommend that you go ahead and get a bunch of objects you think might be nice to create a texture rubbing with. You'll take something, I have right here a leaf, and you'll get an ordinary piece of paper. And I'm just going to take my leaf, and I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to then get a crown, and you can use whatever color you want. Peel your crown. You don't want to use the point. And then you're going to rub and rub and rub. And as you work, pressing very hard, you're finally going to get the texture or the impression of the object. Now, texture is how something feels. So when you make a texture rubbing, you can get a sense of how something feels, whether it's a brittle leaf, or let's try this soft leaf over here and see what it looks like. Let's create a texture rubbing with this. And texture rubbing is just something I have to practice with a little bit. I'm not necessarily going to get it on the first try, but I want to collect a whole bunch of texture rubbings that I can use to cut out for my puppet. It's very exciting. I'll show you some textures that I've collected. Here's a page of leaves that I've made right here. Here's some textures that I made from the rain spout outside. I laid it against the drain spout or the rain spout several times and rubbed it with a blue crown. Here is a texture that I made from the bottom of a shoe right here. And if you look really close, you see the earring I have in my ear? This is a texture rubbing I made from the earring. So get a whole bunch of texture rubbings to help you get started. You're going to use your crowns and your paper for that. Once you've got your texture rubbings ready, it's time to start thinking about your puppet. What sort of puppet do you want to have? Is this puppet going to be a person? Is it going to be a mystical figure? Is it going to be a monster? Is it going to be Spider-Man? Is it going to be some sort of spooky creature or maybe a noble hero? Is it a boy or a girl? Maybe it's a princess. Maybe it's a mix of an animal and a human. That's up to you. You have to think about your character. Who is this puppet going to be? What sort of expression do they have on their face? What do they wear? Do they have a hat? What parts of their body do you need to show? Does your puppet have wings, a tail? Don't just think when you're working of the front of your paper bag, but remember that this object has got sides and it's got a back. So you might need to think of your puppet as having things on the front, like the face, but also on the back. Now, when you start thinking about your puppet, you need to think about where your hand goes. When I take a flat paper bag like this, I notice there's a little flap right here. That's going to be the mouth of my puppet. When I put my hand in, there we go. So I can have a face on the outside of my puppet, but I can also open up my paper bag, woo, and have a wonderful mouth that I can create. Now, the cool thing about this is thinking about shape. I've already got lots of cool texture rubbings, and I wanted to show you how different shapes look. I cut out some shapes here that I'm going to hold up so you can get a sense of what the eye of your puppet might look like. Let's get started. Let's see. I've got a huge shape here. Whoa, that's really big. I like the circle shape, but that is a really, really big circle. Let's try one that's a little smaller. Let's see this guy. Now that is a little bit smaller. It doesn't overwhelm the whole face. It leaves room for other things. I could maybe have a big and a small circle. Ooh, that's kind of funny. A goofy eye, a smaller eye. Now those circles set up a certain feeling in my character. I wonder what he's like. But if I change the shape of my puppet, what if I had an eye shape like this, or a leaf shape? That gives me a different feeling. If I put it low down, high up, if I tilt it, all of these things are going to change the feeling of my puppet. What if I give him a big round nose like that? Ooh, let's give him a little round nose. Sort of like that. Now that's starting to get kind of interesting. So how you create your puppet is up to you. If you look at the puppet that I made, I have lots of pieces of paper that are stacked. I made a basic shape for my eye. I cut out jiggity-jaggedy shapes for my eyebrows, and I did a lot of overlapping. So I put down a shape, and then I put another shape on top, and then another shape. So I have a leaf shape here, then a circle, then another little circle, and a big jolly circle for the nose, and a little sort of, I don't know, moon shape on the side for my smile. Then I went ahead and I cut out an arm and another arm, which I traced from the first arm, added buttons, and then all of it gets glued onto the puppet. It's really very simple. So before you glue things down, you're going to want to play with the shapes. And as you're working, make sure you're thinking about shapes that are balanced and symmetrical. If you put something on one side of the puppet, like I did here, you're probably going to want to put it on the other side of the puppet. Once you're happy with how your puppet parts look, and you've got a lot of good color on there, you're going to take your glue stick and really thoroughly glue down the piece that you want to attach to your bag. Be thorough. Don't just put a little dip of glue on there or it's just not going to work. Let's go ahead. Ooh, I'm going to put his eye right there. That looks wonderful. And then I can open his mouth and glue teeth along here. Maybe have a big long tongue hanging out, and keep adding on parts of my face until I have a fabulous puppet. It's one of the simplest and most fun projects you can do. When you're finished making your puppet, and of course you've thought about the back of the puppet, you've thought about the front of the puppet, the arms, maybe he's got feet. My puppet doesn't have wings, but maybe yours does. I think might have to make him wings. I think he'd probably enjoy that. You can give him a name, and you can write a story about him. In fact, you can have a whole puppet show make a bunch of puppets, and then put on a show for your friends and family with a whole bunch of characters. You can even write a comic book about your puppet. There's so many things to do. And again, all you need are a couple of paper bags, some paper, crowns, make some texture rubbings, then get out your scissors and glue and start creating. Well, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this quick lesson on how to make a puppet out of a plain old paper bag. Go forth and make some, have a lot of fun, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.